Alright, The Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 8, titled Too Far Gone. Now, as a mid season finale, everybody was really excited for this episode, trying to figure out who would live, who would die, because they were kind of pumping it up to be what it was, which was the mid season finale. And with it being the finale and it doesn't come back until February, which seems really far to me because you'd think it would just be in January. But, with it being the mid season finale, everyone's wondering who's gonna live, who's gonna die. People had their guesses. Would it be, would this be like the comics? Would this be different, or would it be half like the comics? This and that. And ultimately, I think it was a great episode, and it was fairly similar to the comics. Some of the stuff that happened, and a lot of the scenes, especially the ending, was actually very similar. I can tell you guys, I've only read like the compendium, which ends right where we are right now in the show, where they're leaving the prison after the whole war, and they kind of had the same image where it's Rick and Carl, and in the backdrop it's the prison, and that's where it leaves off at. But ultimately, I thought it was a great episode. Sucks to see Hershel go. I didn't really think he'd end up being the one who died, except until I actually saw the episode. Even with the preview where the governor was kind of pointing at him, I didn't think he'd really die right there, and I kind of thought somehow they worked past that, and then they'd kind of flip it on us, and someone else would end up dead, even though like they were captured. That would have been an interesting twist. And I thought other people might die too, because of course they made it seem like maybe Beth would die or Maggie would die, and just a ton of different people might get killed off. But we only lost Herschel, which still sad, but at least it was only one person compared to more than one person, especially if you've read the comics. If they killed as many people off in the show as they did in the comics, there wouldn't even be a show right now because they'd kill off like everyone. But I thought it was really well done. The governor has this little speech in the beginning, kidnaps Michonne and Herschel, and I love the scene when they're in the little trailer, and he's like, I'm trying to do this peacefully, the best way I can. I don't want to hurt anybody. And he's like, me and Rick can't live together. Me and Michonne can't live together. And he was talking about how he was gonna kind of let them go, and Michonne, Herschel was being Herschel. He was calm and collected, and Michonne was like, I'm gonna. She was about to say, I'm gonna do this or something, and Herschel's like, just stop because we're already screwed right now. So just calm down and let me try to figure something out right now. But I love that scene, and I just love how everything kind of played out together, and like the governor took all the people and he left to the prison, and he left, I can't remember her name, but he left the woman he basically fell for and her daughter alone. And he's like, you're gonna be safe here because the it's basically rapid, so it'll be deep, and the current strong enough, it'll just sweep the zombies right away as soon as they get to the deep part. And it seemed really simple and protected, and then you find out they're in a flash flood area, which means that once it's there's a flash flood and zombies get caught in there, once it goes right back down just as quick as it rose, zombies get buried under a ton of mud and stuff. So it was a great way to have her daughter get killed off. And when she goes to the prison and the governor sees her, he's kind of already dead at that point. He's back to just being himself because he already he cut Herschel, and he like chopped his head off. He kind of finished the job. And he picks up her daughter out of her arms, and he just puts the gun right to her head and just shoots her. He just blows her brains out right there, and he's gone. It's like she's dead, so there's no point in even being sad. She's done, and he just blows her brains out. And something about that was really cool is the fact that he already dealt with having a daughter who was a zombie. And what he said to Michonne was like, I'm kind of forgetting the past and stuff. My daughter was dead. I realize that now. And he dealt with it again in this episode, and it was just a split second. He was like, oh well, and he put a bullet in her head because he already went through that whole thing over the 6 months in between last season and this season. So he had nothing to struggle with, and he finished her off. But there was so much other stuff that happened. There's little bits of development, like the two little girls had development. The older girl, she's obviously standing up for herself. With Carol, sorry about that. With Carol, telling her lessons and things like that. She stood up for herself, her and her sister, and like it's not really the other kids. It was just those two, which makes sense because they're the main characters compared to the other two random kids. But they kill the two guys, or well, they kill one guy, then they kill the other girl who was fairly important, and they just shot her right in the head and killed her off. So it was interesting to see that because she obviously, we got to know her as a character, and now she's just been killed off by two kids, and it'll kind of, I feel like it has to lead to something else because there are a lot of characters, specifically the woman and her sister. They aren't dead. We didn't see them get killed off. Her sister kind of just kind of lost it. Once that grenade blew up, I guess it was just so close. It was like that was the final straw, and she kind of just had a dead face and just walked away. So I'm sure she's out there somewhere, and I'm sure with them both being in the prison, they end up back together and they kind of deal with their own thing. So they might end up joining the group again, or they might end up in sanctuary, which is where they're gonna go after the prison. And I didn't spoil that from the comics. That was in the trailer from like when the season before the season even premiered. So if you don't remember that, they had that already in the episode. They cut it out of the episode that it was actually in, which I thought was kind of dumb because they were like puffing it up like the whole season before that episode, and then they cut it out of the actual episode. But the radio station and stuff, so they could end up there, with the other characters, or who knows. But I feel like they're definitely gonna come back into the show, in the rest of this season. But the girls kind of grew up. They are fairly strong now. They went to get guns, shot two people. Some of the people are left on the bus. So like Glenn is one of the characters. I think he was really the only main character who was on the bus when it actually took off. So he's on the bus with all the other people. Maggie, Beth, Sasha, Tyrese, pretty much everyone else is just kind of walking wherever they're gonna go. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays a part in what happens to everyone, because Rick and Carl are on their own. Then you have other little groups and sections and stuff. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But the governor's been killed off. He was killed off by the woman he kind of fell in love with, which was also very similar to the comics, where there was a woman who kind of followed him, and when he killed Lori and Judith, and which this happened in the comics, he is the one who kills them. And sorry to spoil that if it really matters that much to you, but that happens in the comics, and they end up dying. And she actually turns on him because he's a crazy guy, and he like killed a woman and her baby. So she kills him, and in this way, it was a great way to sort of make it go full circle, where he kind of fell in love with her, and she fell in love with him as well, and he kind of attached to her because of her daughter more than anything. And then he's the reason her daughter died, and she's like, you got all these people killed for this or for that, and I'm gonna kill you now. So it was great to see that happen, and it was cool how Michonne got her revenge, but she was at the point in the show where she'd already gotten her lesson of not being incredibly angry. So it was really cool to see that like the governor and Rick are fighting, and my dad was saying when we were watching it, he thought Carl was gonna be the one to come up and just like shoot him in the head, but I thought it was great that Michonne got her revenge, and she didn't completely take it. She stabbed him, and she got Rick, and she was like, I'm done. I got what I needed. You're gonna die here anyway. And that was really cool to see that happen, and it made it even better because of course it led to him being shot by one of his own people. So it was great to see that the governor's gone, and I love how they showed the king piece that the little girl drew on, like right after he was shot, like a zombie stepped on it and kind of pushed it into the mud. So he's gone. Everyone's split up. As far as Judith being dead, I don't think she's dead personally. I know there was blood, in the carriage, in the baby seat. I mean, but I just don't feel like she's actually dead because it was just blood. There were like no little baby chunks. There's nothing around it. It was just blood in the thing, and I feel like with it being zombies, it just seems. I mean, it's far too clean for it to just be. She was eaten by zombies or something. So I don't think she's actually dead. I think they just did that to kind of mess with us. But if she is, that would be similar to the comics, and I don't really know how things happen emotionally for the characters after that. But we kind of saw what happened after Lori died in the show, and I could only imagine what happens, after that if she actually is dead. Because in this, a lot of people thought she wouldn't die because they already did the whole Rick losing it thing. But in this, we got Rick and Carl kind of losing it, and Carl was shooting at the zombie, and he was just reloading and pulling the trigger because they're both kind of just hit now. It's over, and it's just the two of them. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But I don't think she's actually dead. I think someone may have gotten her, or the kids might have gotten her on the bus at some point somehow, and we didn't really get to see that or something. I'm really hoping that, of course, but have to wait till February to find out. But definitely love this episode. Thought it was great. Sucks to see Hershel go, but at least the governor's gone. Slight balance, but comment below. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Favorite parts, least favorite parts, and without spoiling too much from the comics, where do you guys think things are gonna go? In the rest of this season, because for one, we have Sanctuary, and two, we have the rat person. So with the prison destroyed, they're either gonna make it where it was one of the characters we got to see, which most likely it wouldn't be anyone we already know, but we're gonna get that revelation in some insane way. So what do you guys expect to see first? Is it gonna be who did like who's feeding the walkers, or do you guys think it'll be everyone kind of getting to Sanctuary first, and then things kind of get crazy there too? So comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.